Okay, so Assalamu alaikum everybody. Thank you so much for joining today, and thank you so much for the invitation from Utul Khair and UKIM. And I really hope you'll find today beneficial, and yeah, hope I can do the topic justice, inshallah. Can you all see me as well, or?
Yeah, mashallah,
Yes.
carry on.
Okay, great. Okay,
Yeah, we
great.
can hear you very clearly. Carry on.
Excellent. Okay. So, inshallah, what we'll be discussing today is the fixed versus growth mindset. Inshallah, how to achieve success in any area of your life. And then mindsets to facilitate that success, inshallah. And then finally, an understanding of the human mind that will hopefully facilitate these shifts in your mindset. So, we're going to try and cover quite a lot today, and we'll see how we go, inshallah. So Khair has already kindly introduced me. So I'm a GP in Lincoln. I've got a 2 and a 5-year-old. And I'm also one of the founders and current chair of council of the British Islamic Medical Association. I also volunteer at my local mosque, and I run a teenage girls halakha inspired by Khair to start that one up. And yeah, I've always been into personal development, and it's ultimately culminated in me actually becoming a professional certified life coach as well. And just to share with you a little bit about my journey, a few years ago, I was really struggling. I was actually quite overwhelmed with life, and quite found it quite difficult to juggle all my roles and my to-do list, especially having children. After having children, and this kind of led me to a downward spiral of feeling quite low and anxious, and kind of that chronic stress mood, that chronic fight or flight mood a lot of the time, and got me feeling quite low in self-esteem, low self-esteem about my parenting, about how I'm managing everything, a lot of guilt. And it just got to a point where I was like, there has to be another way. I have to, like, I can't live like this forever. So that's kind of was a turning point for me, where I started to study personal development, more personal development books as well. I got some coaching myself, and ultimately a few years later, I trained myself to become a certified life coach, which is basically a coach is a new role in society. It's a person who supports people in their personal development journey. And I've learned a lot of mindset and strategies, alhamdulillah, which has helped me be more at peace with myself, and has really accelerated my personal growth. And I'm just really, passionate about sharing this with others and supporting people in their growth, because I know I've been there. I've been in that place of anxiety and overwhelm, and I know it's not easy to go through that all alone. There's not always easy to find people to talk to who can understand. You don't want to burden others with your perceived problems. So that's why I'm really passionate about supporting people with coaching. So moving on. So moving on to our topic for today. So to start off with, well, what is a mindset? So a mindset is basically a person's way of thinking about something, put simply, and it's you could say a set of attitudes held by someone. And Abdul Khair has outlined the distinction in the message that there's generally regarded as there's two types of mindset. There's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So people with a fixed mindset generally believe that they can't change themselves, and they can't really change the world. The world is fixed, they're fixed, their personality is fixed. And they kind of believe there's no point really trying either to try and change the world too much or try and change themselves too much. And they give up easily. They don't really like to try new things. You believe that your abilities and potential are limited and that it can't grow. And you just think, oh, I'm not good at that. And you don't really try either. And people with fixed mindsets tend to be quite rigid in the way they think about themselves, and they tend to kind of have quite of an external focus and control. Like they think, oh, well, I can't change because my circumstances are X, Y, Z, and therefore I'm limited and I can't change. And they tend to think that, roles are quite fixed, that everyone plays a certain role in society, and generally your role can't change. And they don't really like to necessarily challenge themselves, maybe because they fear failure, and they kind of tend to see making mistakes as a bad thing, and getting criticism as a bad thing. So they don't really like to put themselves in that situation. And generally such people have, with a fixed mindset, they have less interest really in learning and developing beyond a certain point. Like they just get quite comfortable in their ways, and they don't really want to push themselves. Growth mindset on the contrary. So people with a growth mindset, they actually do believe that they can change internally and externally, and that the world is changeable too. That they can have an impact on the world, even if it be in a small way, but they can make an impact if they try and if they make time for it. And the people with a growth mindset tend to be interested in learning and growing and looking for new opportunities and interested in and curious to try new things. And they believe that, most things, anything initially is a challenge, but you can develop new skills and abilities at any age if you just persevere and practice. Nobody's good at anything when they start off. If you're, I'm a doctor. When I started off as a doctor, I was a bit rubbish at taking histories, examining, but now, alhamdulillah, I'm more confident. So, most things are a skill that anyone can develop. And people see these people see failure as a stepping stone to success, because you have to, how kids learn to walk, they fall, they keep trying, they fall, and they keep trying, they fall, and eventually they learn to walk. So failure is just a stepping stone to success. And such people with a growth mindset, they want to continuously grow and develop and challenge themselves more, and they want to contribute more and more to society, inshallah, and to their families and to those around them. And if you're here, you probably have a growth mindset, alhamdulillah. And it's said that about, it just roughly in the world, about 50% of people roughly have a fixed mindset and 50% have a growth mindset. That's a stat I've heard. I haven't got a reference for that, but that's just something I've heard. And probably anecdotally, if I think about all the people I know, I could probably see that 50% of people have a fixed mindset and 50% of people have a growth mindset. And but the question is, well, why should we grow? And what as we as Muslim sisters, what are we as Muslims actually aiming to grow towards? So we want to grow towards creating a life ultimately that is, bottom line, that is pleasing to Allah, because Allah has made it very clear in the Quran that our purpose in life is to worship Allah, to believe and do good deeds. And the idea of believing and doing good deeds is to facilitate us actually getting closer to Allah. Like Abdullah ibn Masud, who was, the Prophet ﷺ even said himself that he's one of the greatest, mufassirs of the Quran. He said that to worship Allah ultimately is to know Allah. So we want to create a life ultimately that is optimized to do good deeds with the consciousness of Allah, from morning to evening, inshallah. So that's what we're trying to grow towards, creating a good life where we're continuously doing good deeds and we're continuously conscious of Allah. And this involves basically having a holistic, well-balanced life, not neglecting any area, not neglecting, for example, your health or your relationships for the sake of another part of your life. You want to have it. What needs to be holistic and well-balanced. And another reason why we should grow is because, well, life is short. We only have one life, and we're going to be accountable to Allah very, very soon on the Day of Judgment for how we used our time and knowledge. Allah is going to ask us about every second of how we used our time. So we want to grow so that we can use our the skills Allah has given us, the talents Allah has given us, the opportunities Allah has given us to our best, the best of our ability. And not only do we want to grow in terms of our learning, but it's really, really important. We want to implement what we learn, teach it to others as well, because Allah is going to hold us accountable also for our knowledge. And, one of my greatest inspirations, like one of my favorite surahs, of course, is Surah Al-Asr, that by time, verily mankind is in loss. We're always losing time. We're always losing, but, and everyone, mankind is in loss except those who believe and do good deeds, believe and do good deeds, and who encourage each other to truth and who encourage each other to resilience. So that's, that surah ultimately is one of my biggest inspirations around, becoming, persevering with and being persevering with being a life coach. And also, I think it really shows us, why we want to create a life of doing good deeds, and why we want to grow towards becoming that person who does good deeds. So next question is, well, how can we grow and achieve success literally in any area that we want to, inshallah? So this is this is a summary. Obviously, in this sort of half an hour talk, most of what I'm sharing with you are sort of summaries, but I hope you find them useful, just the introductions. But yeah, this is a framework I use with my coaching clients. So this is how you can, this is like the framework of how you can grow and achieve success really in any area that you focus on. So firstly, you need to have a clear vision of what you actually want to achieve. With obviously as Muslims with the intention linked to pleasing Allah, inshallah. I found with my coaching clients, like the people who actually really thrive and achieve their goals are those who link the goals to pleasing Allah, inshallah. So having a clear vision. And then obviously you need to be strategic in your action steps. Because it's if you have a strategy, if they've got a proven strategy, it's quicker to learn a strategy and implement it than trying to do things by trial and error. Again, that's where having a coach who might have had previous life experience on that in that particular area can help you set like strategic action steps. And then so yeah, you want to be strategic with your action steps. Then you want to, next step is you want to optimize your environment. This is your physical environment as well as your emotional, intellectual, spiritual environment. And this latter part, the emotional, intellectual, spiritual environment, that really comes from having good company, inshallah. And also you having people in your environment that will kind of hold you accountable. Again, that's where, again, I found in my own life, like having a coach, I've got my own life coach, and having that accountability really helps. And it's a way of optimizing your environment. And an example, for example, of physically how you can optimize the environment. Say if you want to lose weight, you optimize the environment by not buying junk food. So it's a lot easier to not have junk food and then not eat it compared to using your limited willpower to try and lose weight, even when there's loads of junk food around. So that's an example of optimizing your environment. Fourth step is basically upgrading your skills. So obviously this depends on what the area is that you want to achieve success in, whether it be your career, health, relationships, your deen, your Quran studies, so whatever the area that you want to upgrade relevant skills, maybe through doing a course, again, getting the guidance of somebody who's already got that skill, perhaps getting a mentor. And the fifth and possibly one of the most important elements is mastering your own thoughts, emotions, psychology, and mindset, because often the biggest thing that holds us back from achieving our goals is ourselves, our own mental blocks. And that's why there's a common saying in the personal development world that 90% of the game is played above the shoulders. It's all in your mind, like, how, because you have to persevere, you have to, you have a lot of grit to continue sometimes in your pursuit of your goals. And that's the kind of, the fifth area is what we're going to be concentrating in today's talk, inshallah. So moving on to some useful mindsets for growth and success. So this was quite a hard topic for me to plan because there's so many mindsets I've come across that so useful, that I found so useful, but obviously I didn't want to overwhelm you guys and I had limited time. So I've picked sort of some of the most useful mindsets for growth and success that I thought, inshallah. So the first mindset that I want to share is be aware of something called the transformational dilemma and know that you will acclimate to acclimatize. Okay, so this is a concept I've learned from my my coach and my coaching mentor teacher as well, that basically the transformation dilemma is the concept that growth often involves change, right? So for example, if you go from being single to being married, or having no children to having children, or being a student to working, or if you move if you move cities, growth often involves change, okay? Or, even if you want to establish a new habit, like you want to learn Quran more, you want to learn you have to make changes in your life, okay? And often when with that change, when you're trying to make that change or in the process of making that change, there can be a lot of internal conflict. So obviously you want to get to that next step in your life, you want to grow, but there's a part of you that clings to your comfort zone, that clings to that, the old way, like we say, doesn't want to kind of, is a bit anxious and wants to cling to that comfort. And that, you may experience, when you're making a change, you may experience fear, anxiety, self-doubt, even sometimes a mini grief reaction. If you're, for example, if you're getting married and you're moving away, together with the excitement can come, like, a lot of anxiety as well. And the key to know about this is that is completely normal. Okay, it's not, to have that anxiety and all is completely normal. It's something everybody goes through. But also another key to realize is that you will acclimatize. This is like, without even trying, you will get used to it. So the human body emotion mind system is, subhanallah, if you think about it, one of the most adaptable and dynamic systems known in the universe. Like, think about it. Like, for example, today was a really cold day in Lincoln, it was snowing. When you go outside on a really cold day, what happens initially is that you feel like freezing cold, right? You feel really, really cold. And what happens after a few moments? Like, you just get used to that temperature. Similarly, if you jump into a swimming pool, initially you feel really cold. And then without even consciously trying, you just kind of get used to your new environment and surroundings. To give you another example, like, for example, I'm a GP, and when I was a trainee, I was like, how will I ever consult patients in 10 minutes? Like, it just seemed impossible to me when I was seeing patients for about half an hour, 20 minutes. And I was like, how will I do that? And I had a lot of anxiety about, like, when I qualify, how will I possibly see patients in 10 minutes? But the truth of the matter is, whatever situation you put in, your system, your mind, without you even consciously trying, you just get used to that. Subhanallah, like, you just get used to, you just adjust, you just get used to it. And so knowing this is a concept that you will acclimate, it allows you to just drop a lot of that anxiety and worry about the change that you're about to go through. I think, like, for me, that certainly, once I understood this as a concept, it really just made me, like, keep going, keep growing without so much worry about, can I do it? Because I knew, like, I will adapt, my system will get used to the new change in my life. And just think back, take a moment to think back to your own life and think about where you've just gotten used to things and adjusted, and notice, like, when you realize that and you realize yourself adjusting, your self-esteem just grows, because you are able to do it, inshallah. So another mindset for growth, and growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone. Be aware of this. See, a lot of the times, again, when we're trying to grow, we feel that fear, anxiety, and we feel it's a struggle. And sometimes we can take that as an indication that we're not ready for this change, or we're not ready to try out this new thing. But reframe that. Like, actually, when you feel fear and anxiety about doing a new thing, it actually tells you that is, reframe that and take that as an indication that that's actually right where you're supposed to be. That is the thing. If you have that fear and anxiety, that slight bit of fear and anxiety, for example, me doing a talk like this, I have not actually done anything like this on Zoom. So, I had that slight fear and anxiety that, oh, can I do it? Can I present to so many sisters? But, that I took that as an indication that actually, this is maybe something I should try, and it's a way to reach more people, inshallah. So, take it as a indication that you're right where you're supposed to be. And you have to know as well, you have to push yourself a bit if you want to grow as a person. And you, unless you put yourself at the edge of your comfort zone, you're not going to be able to ultimately grow towards that success. Same thing, take that with any example, like relationships or starting your new diet. You might make you slightly uncomfortable initially, but you have to push yourself if you want to grow. Next mindset, I love this one. Aim for progress, not perfection. Okay, this is key. So you, instead of comparing yourself to others, compare yourself to your previous self and see how far you've come. And you just have to, if you want to grow, drop that kind of idea of perfectionism and pleasing others and comparing yourself to others. Just compare yourself to yourself, to your past self. And remember that to do something, to just get it done, is better than doing it not. Like, done is better than perfect, basically. So instead of trying to get something perfect before you put it out there, or your house has to be perfect before you have anyone over, just do the thing. Have this mindset that done is better than perfect as well, inshallah. And also, just with regards to that, remember that what gets scheduled gets done. So, for example, just taking something like an exercise routine, or like, you might, to do that exercise, doing even a little bit when you've scheduled it is better than and maybe having an imperfect routine, or where your kids come in and interrupt you, for example. Doing it is better than not doing it at all. So, a lot of us, we may have small children and we always get interrupted, like, for example, if we were exercising or something like that. But don't put off doing things because you have to have like the perfect environment and perfect situation in order to do it. Done, remember, just done is better than perfect. And again, try and schedule times to get things done, inshallah. Next mindset as well is this concept of patient timelines. Okay, so this is another one I love, and I think again particularly relevant to Muslim women like us that are juggling a lot of roles, is to remember that small and consistent deeds are the best, inshallah. So the idea behind this is like you set goals, but don't necessarily be in a rush to achieve them, because ultimately the results are in Allah's hands. Okay. So equally, you don't want to give up on your goals. So for example, again, if you have the goal to lose weight and exercise, you have that goal that you want to look a certain way and lose a certain amount of weight, but you might think, oh, I don't have time to exercise. That doesn't mean that you don't set that goal at all. Like, just do what you can. And as I say, don't be in a rush to achieve it, because it's ultimately in Allah's hands. To give maybe another example, say you have a goal of learning Quranic Arabic. Again, have that goal, but you remember it's in Allah's hands when you achieve it. But the key here as well is that you want to enjoy the journey of learning the Arabic, okay? Because the journey can be as enjoyable as the destination, because ultimately doing deeds is about doing these deeds, like learning Arabic, doing hifz. It's all about connecting to Allah in the moment, right? It's about connecting to Allah in the moment. So it's not about getting to that end goal just for the sake of the end goal, or feeling that, about like thinking that when I get to this goal, when I achieve this destination, then I will feel happy, or then I will feel close to Allah, or then I will feel like this. No, the end is like doing that small deed every single day is an end in itself, because it's a means of you connecting to Allah. And when you get to that ultimate end goal, that, as it were, is in Allah's hands, the results are in Allah's hands. So remember that, and keep your goals small and consistent, because often we give up when we don't see immediate results, right? So don't give up just because you don't see immediate results. And just start by thinking, how can you realistically incorporate some bits of action towards your goal in your life? Like, I often, as a coach, when I have clients, I always ask my clients, like, if I think they're being a bit optimistic, I think, are you being realistic there in that goal? Can you realistically do that? Because often we set ourselves, in our enthusiasm, initially we can set ourselves massive goals, but then we get demotivated when we see that we're not getting those immediate results. So you want to be realistic. And the key here as well is like, accept and surrender to your current situation. So for example, if you've got small kids, like for example, I've got, a 2-year-old, you can only go at a certain pace. You can only give a certain amount of time to a certain task. But, don't resist that and don't get frustrated by that. Surrender to that, and then set realistic what you can do each day. And then, don't be in a rush to get to that end goal, because that's in Allah's hands. And a hadith to support this, the Prophet ﷺ said, take up good deeds only as much as you're able, for the best deeds are those done regularly, even if they are few. So this is key. And another principle I've learned in personal development studies is this idea of the Pareto Principle, 80-20. So basically, this principle is the idea that 20% of our actions give us 80% of the results. So again, this comes down to, when you've got limited time, be strategic in your actions. I think, what are the 20% of actions that will give me 80% of my results, and how can I get highest leverage on myself, like, so that the smallest amount of my time and effort gives me the greatest results towards, so for example, again, and when it comes to Quran studies, there's a certain strategy where, you can learn Quranic Arabic much quicker. You can learn Tajweed much quicker. So, it's about learning those strategies and implementing them as well, inshallah. Same when it comes to anything, weight loss, improving your relationships, etc. So the final mindset I wanted to share with you guys as well is this idea of sharpening the saw. Okay, again, I think this is key to successful Muslim women in any area, because a lot of us as Muslim, as young, sort of youngish Muslim women, we have so many roles that we often neglect ourselves. So I just want to emphasize this point, that rejuvenation is as important for productivity as the productive action itself. Okay. And also remembering, like, yeah, you have to think about what are the activities that energize you as well. So this analogy, by the way, sharpen the sword. So this comes from a book called Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. So the analogy is that, a woodcutter was given 4 hours to cut down a tree. So he spent 3 hours cutting down the saw rather than using a blunt saw to saw down the tree. He used he spent 3 hours sharpening the saw and then 1 hour just cutting it straight off. Then it was much easier to cut it. So this is the thing, you can't, as a person, you can't pour, you've heard this phrase, I'm sure, you can't pour from an empty vessel. So you need to rejuvenate yourself if you want to be successful in achieving a goal. And there needs to be clear distinction between, I would recommend for you having a clear timetable and having clear distinction between times of work, getting stuff done, times of chores, times of working on your career, and then times of rest and rejuvenation as well. Clear distinction, rather than, I'll just, while I'm free this evening, so I'll just do this chore. No, you make time, prioritize your rest and rejuvenation as much as you prioritize your productive tasks, as it were. And again, another hadith here that the Prophet ﷺ said, do not make yourself hate the worship of Allah. So worship of Allah here, I'm taking as any kind of good productive thing that you might regard as productive, because the traveler who does not let his mount rest will not reach his destination, and his mount will not be able to keep going. So if you have a goal and you burn out, you won't be able to get to that end destination. So that's why rejuvenation is as important as productivity. I've got a client at the moment I'm coaching for her exams, in helping her revise for exams, and I'm always like, saying, how will you rejuvenate yourself? It's not just about revising 24/7, because then you're not effective. So you have to put as much attention to the rejuvenation part as well. So finally now, so I've talked about some mindset. So as I say, you could think of a mindset as a way of thinking. But what I want to briefly attempt to share with you guys is an understanding of psychology to actually facilitate these mindset shifts. And basically, this is, I want to share with you a new paradigm of psychology, which is about basically us answering the question of where do our feelings come from? Because ultimately, most of us, what do we want? We want to feel good, right? You want to feel happy, you want to feel at peace. When you ask anybody, well, why do you want to achieve that goal? It's like, you want to feel good about yourself, you want to feel at peace. Like, these are the things ultimately that we're sort of chasing, right? Feeling good, feeling okay, feeling at peace, feeling happy, feeling fulfilled. But so this is a really, really interesting, actually, to be honest, life-changing paradigm that I've come across that has really, really transformed my life. And it's the whole concept of this inside out paradigm, inside out reality. So basically, can you see my arrow here, guys? Yeah, hopefully.
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So most of us, where do we think our feelings or our mental state, like, where do we think it comes from? We think it's coming from, like, say if we feel sad or upset, we feel generally, most of us think it comes from our circumstance. So either the fact that, for example, the fact that, our partner's like, I don't know, lazy or something, or that we're not married, or that we have, our job is stressful, or the fact that we don't have a job, or the fact that our kids are stressing us out. That's why we're feeling so low and stressed out, or the fact that we don't have kids, or this illness is stressing me out, or this relationship, or this my in-law is stressing me out, or so and so friend said this and that's making me feel upset. Or worrying about the past or future. This happened in my past, that's why I feel so rubbish. Or I don't have enough money, or I have this financial problem, that's why I'm feeling rubbish. Or I've not achieved this goal, I've not done my hifz today, I've not read Quran today, or something, and that's why I'm feeling so guilty or bad. So we think it's basically the circumstance, basically, that leads to our feelings in the moment. And some of us might have an awareness that, oh yeah, thought has some sort of role as well. Like, we might think, yeah, and thought's mixed in there somewhere. I'm thinking, we have that awareness that, yeah, okay, maybe thought also has a role. But mainly we think it's like the circumstance that's causing our feeling or current mental state. Okay, so that's the illusion. But the reality is, right, this is the paradigm shift, the other side of the line, is that our feelings, right, and our mental state fluctuates from moment to moment to moment to moment, in any given moment, okay? our feelings are always changing. Our mental state is always changing, and what is it? It's not changing based on the external circumstance, because on a given day we might feel happy one moment, in 1 hour, sad in 1 hour, scared in 1 hour, even not even hour, minute to minute, frustrated, and the external circumstances haven't necessarily changed, but what's changed is our thoughts in the present moment. So this basically, this law is actually a principle of psychology, states that like our feelings or emotional state in any given moment it comes 100% comes from our thoughts in the present moment and nowhere else. So that you might be conscious of the thought, we might not be conscious of that thought, but that's essentially where it comes from, that our feelings do not come from the external circumstance, but they come from how we are thinking in that moment and nowhere else. So yeah, those circumstances might still be there, but they're not always. The key here is that our circumstances don't dictate how we feel. It's not like our husband has the magical ability to definitely make us feel a certain way, or that the fact that, I don't know, we've got a parking ticket that it doesn't mean that that's got the magic. The parking ticket in itself doesn't have that magical, that it doesn't send rays to us to make us respond a certain way. No, like it doesn't have that ability, it doesn't have that power. Our feelings only ever come from how we're thinking in the moment and nowhere else. And that's why different people, actually the same circumstance, they can actually react very differently to that same circumstances. So my mentor gives this example of when his sister passed away, and he was saying that my sister passed away, and my mum was distraught, like feeling really sad. My dad was really, really angry at the hospital. My brother was feeling guilty that he didn't have such a good relationship with his sister. My sister was feeling stressed out that we've got to arrange the funeral. So the same external reality, but different people will feel actually having a different emotional experience or feeling different moment to moment based on how they were thinking in that moment. And this might seem like not a big deal, but it's actually when this hits you, like it's basically life changing. Like it really drops a lot of thinking. And I'll explain more in a second. And yeah, basically, so another key here as well is what Khair was saying at the beginning, is like, now how can we, the key is becoming conscious of our thoughts and knowing ultimately that our thoughts come from Allah, and know only Allah has the power to cause our feelings and mental state via thought. And the key to becoming aware of Allah is becoming conscious of our thoughts in that moment. And that's how you can in a way connect to Allah in any moment, by just becoming more conscious of your thoughts. So this is really deep. I know, like I don't know if this is taking me about 2 years to basically really get to grips with it, and I still, it's one of those things you just keep having in more and more insights, more and more. And it is a complete paradigm shift, because like 90% of the world thinks that feelings come from their experience. Like, you made me so angry, you made me so sad, oh, I've lost loads of money, that's why I'm feeling sad. So we all, in our common language, common culture, most 90% of the world think this is how this is how our psychological state works, our mental reality. And this is a new emerging thing. More and more people are understanding this. And the thing is, this is 100% true as well. Like, so this is like in any situation, a principle in science, like something has to have no exceptions. So there's no exceptions to this law. This is like a law of psychology, a paradigm. Like, how people didn't realize that germs causes infectious diseases. Like, say 200 years ago, they thought it was bad smells that actually caused diseases. And then they realized, oh, there's these things called germs, there's these things called bacteria, and that's how we get our illnesses. People kind of have awareness that thoughts have a role, and that's why things like mindfulness and meditation and things are there in common in culture, but perhaps people don't understand the actual underlying principle. When you understand the underlying principle, then again it makes you aware of, like, as well, certain ayahs, like, in verily in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. Like, why is that an amazing ayah? Like, because when you remember, say if you're in a stressful situation and you remember Allah, then your thoughts are changing, and therefore your mental state changes. when you get angry, there's a hadith that, when you get angry, sit down, or lie down or go make wudu. Why is that? Where the Prophet ﷺ teach that? Because when you do those actions, again, doing those actions kind of changes your mental state, and it changes your thoughts. Because again, when you do wudu, for example, you're meant to think of Allah. So this is a principle basically that kind of explains all that. And it is a new paradigm shift. So it looks like just how, again, 400 years ago, people used to think that the earth the sun goes around the earth, because that's what it looks like. People used to think the earth is flat because that's what it looks like. And this is what it looks like, that our feelings come from our circumstance. But actually, then people realize, no, actually that the earth is round. And this is a similar, it's a paradigm shift. And another way to think of it is like, how does our heart pump how does our blood get around our body? It's our heart pumping it. How does our mind work? Our thoughts cause our feelings. It's sort of as simple as that. Now, that might not seem like a big deal, but just to there's so many implications when you actually understand this properly. So many implications. Like I mentioned, different people react differently on an emotional level to the same external circumstance based on their thoughts. You realize that the power of changing your mindset, how it can have an impact on your emotional state. You also realize that you don't have to change your external circumstance in order to feel okay again. You will be okay again. Say if you're stressed out or sad or whatever, that it's just your thoughts in that moment, and that you'll be okay emotionally again as soon as your thoughts change. You don't even necessarily have to change your thoughts. Just becoming conscious of your thoughts makes you instantly kind of okay again, because you're like, oh, it's just my thing. I'm feeling sad today, or I'm feeling a bit anxious, but it's just my thinking, so I'll be okay type thing. You don't necessarily have to positive think your way out of it. You just have to become conscious of your thoughts. It also reduces, as I say, a lot of unnecessary thinking and worrying. Basically, if you think that if you're say feeling stressed about something, and you think that external circumstance is the cause of your stress, you're actually going to focus on that external circumstance more and more and more. If you think your husband is the cause of why you feel so sad and down all the time, then you're going to focus on your husband's imperfections or whatever even more and more and more, right? And then what does that do? That's a vicious cycle. Then that makes you feel more and more low, right? Whereas if you realize, oh, actually it's just my thinking and not the external person, then you kind of drop all that thinking. It's like when people realize that the earth is not flat, sorry, and it's round, and sailors stop worrying about falling off the edge of the earth when they went sailing. Before, they used to actually worry. They used to have a lookout person that we have to make sure we're not getting to the edge of the earth. But when they realize that, actually the earth is round, then they stop worrying about that. You also drop a lot of, I feel, guilt and self-criticism, because you realize that all these guilty thoughts, they're just thoughts, and they're not actually helping you in any way, or they're not actually giving any indication of the outside circumstances. It's just your thought in that moment, and actually it's not that helpful. It's not helping you achieve any goal. So that's why it kind of drops away. And also, very powerfully, it's very empowering, because you realize that other people or circumstances do not have the power to cause your feelings or emotions, right? So that's you can suddenly become much more compassionate. For example, my husband sat on my laptop and smashed the screen, right? And so now when I see that smashed screen, if I thought, my emotions, I feel a bit sad, when you see a smashed screen, you're like, oh, that's a shame. But I don't blame him for how I'm feeling. I'm just conscious that, oh, it's because I'm thinking about the fact that he's, I can hold him accountable maybe for smashing the screen and what he did in that moment, but I can't hold him accountable if every time I see the screen I feel sad, because he's not causing that, if that makes sense. It's just my thinking in that moment, if that makes sense. So you drop a lot of that, blaming others for your feelings. And similarly, you also you realize you don't have the power to cause other people's feelings, so you drop a lot of people pleasing. And this actually makes, because you realize this, you don't do things because you don't have a goal just because of how you think it's going to make you feel. You really do things only just to please Allah only, because you realize that achieving a certain goal isn't going to affect your feelings, or you don't know how it's going to affect your feelings. You do things only sincerely to please Allah alone. That's the only reason to have a goal. And it also allows you just to clear your mind and focus on the present moment more, which ultimately leads to that sense of peace. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions as a whistle stop. There's so much more I could say, but I'm just trying to give you guys a snippet and a new understanding again about how to, change, why changing your mindset, inshallah, or having these mindset helps. And I just wanted to share, again, I know it's a lot of stuff I've gone through really, really fast. So, and it might seem a bit theoretical. So I just wanted to, because you guys invited me to do this talk tonight, I just wanted to give this gift that if anybody actually wants a free coaching session with me, feel free to book a coaching session. Here's my link, to actually go a bit deep on how you can apply all these things, or, put all these concepts to your unique situation. If there's a change you want to make, or if there's a particular problem you want to solve, from my personal experience, if you'll get clarity on your situation a lot quicker by talking to a professional coach about it. And so, as I say, my free sessions, I'll give you 60 minutes of my full attention just to help you get really clear on your outcomes and visions, what's holding you back, renewed motivation, and help you with some next action steps and talk about some of the things we've learned today. But and I'd love to do that with everybody here, but unfortunately my time's limited because I'm a GP and got little kids. So for the first sort of 10 people that apply, inshallah, I can do a free session with you guys, hopefully. But yeah, sorry, I would love to do it with everybody, but unfortunately my time's a bit limited.
Excellent, mashallah.